What's going on, champions? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for watching. I'm back here to take the fear out of fitness. Before we begin, I would like to thank you for watching my videos previously. They have gone semi-viral, and without projecting a little bit too much into the future, they have a response. They have a response, not necessarily directly to me, but they do have a response. And later in the week, I'll be checking in on that. But for today, we're about to take off. Class is in session. Here we go. Guys, when you know me by now. If you don't know me, if you don't know what my channel is about, it is about literally getting people to the mindset of shifting their minds to health, as opposed to staying in the rut that we're in regards to our ability to just be stagnant and living a life of mediocrity, physically mediocrity, and physical detriment to our lives, our families, and to our society. However, I'm always going to be an advocate for common sense when it comes to science. I'm always going to be fair when it comes to what it is that I talk about. I'm never going to be the person that's going to body shame you. That's not what I do. But I am going to call you out if you are on the wrong side of the fence. Whether you're hyper pro fitness to the point where it is detrimental to your not only your physical health but your mental health, and if you are on the other end of the spectrum where you decide that you're not going to do jack but sit down on your butt and do nothing. I want everybody to have a life, and a life well lived at the end of the day. So also, by the way, I want you guys to realize that I will fight against both body shaming and false positive body imagery. If you don't know what false positive body imagery is, go through my channel. You will know exactly what false positive body imagery is. However, we do have to call the spade the spade. And I came across an article the other day, and it's actually the maps of obesity in our country. And what you'll be, if you are anyone that typically studies the epidemiology of obesity and where it resides and how it distributes amongst our society, you will know that primarily the South is the biggest culprit. So, why is it that I'm bringing this up now? Well, it seems to be that things have gotten worse. Okay? So, if things have gotten worse, then here I am needing to help it get better. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to read this thing. We're going to go through it. So, here we go. It says, by the way, this did come from Fox News, but there's aspects of Fox News that is actually straight down the middle when it comes to the journalistic end of it. So I don't necessarily dismiss articles from Fox News unless it pertains to politics. All right. All U.S. states have an obesity rate among their residents higher than 20%, which is at least 1 in 5 adults, and many exceed that. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, ironically, published its 2022 adult obesity prevalence maps on Thursday, detailing obesity rates for the 50 states, the District of Columbia, and the 3 U.S. territories. The 3 states with the highest obesity prevalence among their residents were Louisiana, Oklahoma, and West Virginia, all of which had 40% or higher rates. Now, like I've said to you before, obesity, based on its description, is being used through the means of BMI, and I am not one to tout BMI because BMI is merely height over weight. Who cares? If you're short and you've got more muscle mass than somebody else, you're going to be considered overweight, if not obese. That's not real, because you're larger than everyone else. That's not obesity. Obesity is a high body fat percentage exceeding 25% overall in most people. Typically, women have a little bit more of a cushion, and they can get as high as 30% without exceeding obesity rates in terms of body fat percentages, right? But many of the medical community uses to this day BMI, and it's not what we're supposed to be using to measure our citizens. Why? Because everyone is different. And because everyone is different, we need a universal standard that will meet the criteria that is acceptable by all to be able to decide whether or not there is a need for change. Because if you're 5 feet 4 inches tall, like myself, and you weigh 200 pounds, but you're Mr. Olympian sized in that regard, you're just jacked upon all jacked, and somebody tells you need to lose weight, you'll laugh them out the room, because I'm muscle. Why would I need to lose weight? I can lift a Buick. I'm exaggerating, of course, but I'm strong as all get out. Why would I just not be big anymore? So, with that being said, these rates are subjective, and I want you guys to keep that in mind as I read this article, because that doesn't mean we're not obese. It just means that maybe some of us are not as obese as they think we are, and some of us may be more obese than we think we are. 19 states had obesity rates between 35 and 40, the report said. 22 states ranged from 30 to 35%. This is more than a third of the country, mind you. This is well more than a third. Nobody so far has went under a third. That means 1 in 3 people that you come across is more than likely obese. These included Alabama, Arkansas, Delaware, Georgia. Delaware is not exactly the South, but Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, Nebraska. Now we're in the Midwest. North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wisconsin. I know people from Wisconsin, and they tell me all people do up there is eat. So I'm not surprised. The 3 states with the highest obesity prevalence among their residents were Louisiana, Oklahoma, and West Virginia. 40% or higher, meaning almost half the population is obese. Regionally, the Midwest had the highest rates of obesity, followed by the southern states. Wow, actually, that's incredible. Followed by the southern states and the Northeast, and then the West. The report drew data from behavioral risk factor surveillance system of telephone interview survey conducted by an ongoing basis by CDC and individual state health departments. Let's see. Obesity is a disease caused by many factors, including eating patterns, physical activity levels, sleep routines, genetics, and certain medication. However, we know the key strategies that work include addressing the underlying social detriments of health, such as access to health care, healthy and affordable food, and safe places for physical activity. So this means that people who live in urban areas are least likely to exercise. I will not talk about that because in a future video I will be talking about that myself. However, obesity rates by race and ethnicity. There was a wide variance among individual ethnic groups. Among non-Hispanic Black adults, 38 states saw obesity rates of 35% or higher. For non-Hispanic American, Indian, or Alaskan Native adults, 33 states or territories had obesity rates of 35% or higher. Hispanic adults had at least a level of obesity in 32 different states, and for non-Hispanic white adults, 14 states had 35% or higher obesity. Non-Hispanic Asian adults did not have that rate in any state or territory, which also tells you there is a racial component to all of this. And within that, I want to make sure we understand that within that racial component, it may not be as accurate, but there's still a level of truth to it that we need to pay attention to as African Americans. Variances by education and age. People with higher levels of education were less likely to have obesity. Adults without at least a high school diploma had the highest obesity rates at 37.6%. And I am more than willing to bet that it is more of an economic issue than it is an education issue. I don't think that people without a high school diploma seriously just means that they're just lacking intelligence enough to know not to eat crappy foods. What I will say is it's probably more aligned with the socioeconomic standpoint of it, that they then cannot afford to eat healthy foods due to the nature of their financial status, because typically the least among us are people without high school diplomas. As a matter of fact, if without a high school diploma, you lose out on $23,623 and annually, just based on the fact that you didn't graduate with a high school diploma. All right, just keep that in mind. So this is also what I tell my students, so therefore stay in school. Those with some college education had 35.9% obesity rates, followed by high school graduates, which is lower, and then college graduates, which is the lowest. Young adults between 18 and 24 years old had the lowest obesity rate at 20%, 1 in 5. While adults aged 45 to 54 had the highest rates, 39.9%, which is 40%, which means instead of us, it's the same thing that I explained to somebody else years ago, where when you were in your youth, you were active, you were running around, you were doing things a lot. And then as you got older, you got more established. So the responsibilities became more mental than physical. And as a result, you sit down more. You don't do as much. And as a result, you then take and find yourself in a position where you're not as active. And then your diet hasn't changed over those 20 years. So since your diet hasn't changed in those 20 years, your physical requirements you tend to gain more weight, and you'll gain weight anyway as you get older, but you tend to gain more weight because you haven't changed your eating habits, as well as you have not changed. You've changed in your physical components. So I want y'all to keep this in mind. I'm going to land this plane real quick because it is important that you guys begin to understand that this is not a game. This is not a series of fat shaming videos. This is not me making fun of you. I'm sick of people utilizing the terminology fat shaming and weaponizing it in such a way where you cannot be held accountable for the decisions that you've made. Yes, I know that you're probably the most critical of yourself, but when are you going to have the courage to stand forth and accept it and then do the work? When are you going to have the courage to do the work? Because if you don't have the courage to do the work, you're going to find yourself in a world of hurt. And I don't want that for you. I want you to take this on as though you would take on any other challenge in your life. And if you're not taking on series of challenges in your life, you are lacking courage in all facets of your life. And I suggest you go get help in order to find that courage to be better than you are today. So, I am grateful for you all. Thank you for watching. By the way, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube. Have a nice day. Be the best you. Class is Stoutt.